Hey YouTube, welcome back. I'm getting ready to get started on my next project. For this project, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be doing a little bit of a mixture of old and new. I have an old prop that I built a couple years ago for the 21 display that was just kind of like a brick structure that was kind of tucked in the woods. I'm going to show you a quick picture of that real fast. As you can see, it's just like an old brick structure that I kind of had tucked away in the trees right there. So what my game plan is, I'm going to go ahead and bring it here in the shop, take a look at it, see what kind of condition it's in. I kind of left it out there for the last couple of years, so I really don't know what kind of condition it's going to be in once I really start messing with it. But what my game plan is I want to take that center section that you saw and make it into a cubby hole, and I want to put a bus there. Now, I haven't decided just yet if I'm going to animate it, and if I do animate it, how I want to animate it, or that kind of stuff. But I want to build the bus and kind of put it in there and either put some kind of eerie lights on it or something like that. Just to kind of give it like that, creepy kind of vibe kind of thing to it. So, hope you guys enjoy this video, and let's get started. All right, so here's one of my fancy little drawings. Now, right now, currently, the prop is only two-sided, and I plan on just leaving it two-sided because you only really see two sides of it based on, where it's sitting, and I'm going to put it back in that same location. But essentially what I'm going to be doing is I'm still going to have the foam on the bottom. I'm going to cut out the center. I'm going to mount the bust inside here. I'm going to do like that staggered kind of block kind of look on the sides here, going up the side. I'll do a little bit of a support system for the roof and all that kind of stuff. So, and then these sides right here where I have it set at 9 feet, or sorry, not 8 feet, and then 7 foot to the taper. So with that, a lot of these sizes are going to be determined based on the overall condition that stuff's in once I start moving it. Right now it looks to be okay, but I also haven't really got in there to look at it yet. So let's go ahead and get it out, get it in the shop, and see what I'm working with. You can see Mother Nature wasn't super great to them. Of course, also I did leave them out there in the yard for the last couple of years. So I mean, what did I expect? But when you kind of look at all this up here, I mean, it kind of looked like it held up pretty good. But down here where that foam was and being right on the ground, that's pretty much what kind of rotted out. So since I know that that's rotted out, I went ahead and went to the hardware store, picked up some new 2x4s, picked up another full sheet. This will be the front side. What my game plan is going to be that since it looks to be pretty decent from there to there, I'm going to go ahead and I'll be cutting it off straight. That's going to determine the pitch of my roof now. So now that's going to tell me how much my roof's going to come down because it's going to have to match the height of that. I'm going to see if I can get this off because I kind of wanted to reuse that piece. So what my game plan is right now, because we've had a lot of rain here in Florida in the last few weeks, these things are kind of soft. So I'm hoping this will work to my advantage. I'm going to get them off the wood. I'm going to lay them flat on my floor here. I'm going to lay like a sheet of plywood on top of them, put some weights on them. I'm going to turn all the fans on, let all the fans blow on them. I'll probably let them sit here for a couple of days and see if maybe I can get those to flatten back out just a little bit, and then I'll see how much I could recycle from them. And being that I might be able to, I might just make this three-sided since I'm going to have the material to do it, but we'll just see how it goes once I get these apart. All right, so one of the next things I'm going to be doing, because since I'm going to be putting all those little corner pieces on it and I'm going to be putting a roof on there, to try to make this thing into 3 separate pieces and then carrying out there and reassembling it and trying not to damage all the little pieces, I'm going to end up building this in one piece. So it's going to be too big and too heavy to carry. So I'm going to be screwing some 4x4s to the bottom to essentially create kind of like a pallet kind of deal. And what that's going to allow me to do is when I'm ready to move it, I'll carry it out into its spot with my tractor. So I'm going to go ahead and get some 4x4 screwed to the bottom so I can anchor the other pieces to it. Once I get this to a point I can stand it up, then I'll get it stand up and I'll start doing like some bracing, some corners, square it up and all that, and then we'll keep moving forward from there. Alright, so I got this thing all put together. Now I wasn't really paying attention. I probably should have put this one on the other side because this is the side profile that you see. But I also was planning on, since this is kind of already much lighter and kind of faded out compared to this, I'm going to take a small section of this, that I cut off for the arch here, take it to a paint place and see if I get like a quart of red that's really close to this color. And I'm going to repaint the sides. So this way it all looks really close to being the same right from the very beginning, when I first put it out there. Obviously I'm going to do some aging on it, things like that, but I want to kind of make them look the same right from the very beginning. And obviously the brick didn't line up, like you wanted it to, just because of the way things worked out. But once I put those big corner pieces on here, and this thing is kind of tucked up in the trees, you're not going to see that really anyways. So the next step is I'm going to work on my base, my piece that's going across the top here, figure out my roof, probably get my front piece glued in. Alright, I went ahead and I stuck the face piece on. Obviously it was a little warped from the old wall, kind of being wavy. So what I did is I put a bunch of caulking underneath of it and just put a bunch of paint cans on it to weight it down until it's dry. What I'm doing for the roof support portion, you can see where I just cut a 2x4 to match the taper of the roof. Took another 2x4, bent it down my table saw to create that taper, and did another piece at the bottom. So what that'll do is that'll make it so when I run my foam board, it'll be able to touch here, and it'll be able to touch up there, and I'll be able to anchor it, caulk it, seal it, and that's how I'll be able to put my roof on here to create, the support for the roof system. I started putting my trim pieces on, all my border pieces. Got the center piece on. I still want to put some little bevel pieces here, like I did here, on all this stuff to give it a nicer transition. And now I'm working on making my little pieces that are going to go right here. And have you ever had those moments where you think to yourself, man, it sounded great, until you have to start doing it? Well, I'm in the process of making all my lines and all my marks for all of them. So this is going to be definitely a time-consuming part, but I think it's going to look good when it's done. So I'm going to continue marking this out and start cutting it, and hopefully get those on this very shortly, and I'll be standing it upright. Okay, so one of the things I did here is when I cut the first piece for the top, I knew I still had that 3/4 that's going to go here, so I compensated by making this 3/4 of an inch wider than I made the other ones. So this way when it overhangs. So what that's going to do is once this goes on here like this, you see everything will come out nice and even. Obviously I can do some shifting of this before the caulking's dry. And then once the caulking's fully dry, then I'll come back with my, either my router or a knife, and I'll cut the lines right here to simulate the individual blocks. And then obviously then I'll peel all the foils off, and then I'll get everything painted. So this way it all looks like the corner, blocks within the brick structure. All right, I'm getting ready to get started on the bust portion of this prop. Now, all I'm going to use is like one of those styrofoam heads you get from a hobby store and one of those big foam blocks for the lower section. And what I'm going to do to carve it is how I, carve most of my stuff. Is I use an electric chainsaw, a little grinding wheel on my grinder, rasp, sandpaper, and all that kind of stuff. And that's what's going to give me my main shape. And then a technique that I've used in the past quite a few times to kind of create like facial hair, like clothing, the jacket, is just your basic painter's acrylic latex caulkings. I like it because it's water based, it's easy to clean up, it's easy to work with. It does have a little bit longer dry time depending on how thick you put it on, but it's easy to work with. All I use is I just use little troweling knives, Bondo spreaders, to kind of get like the look, and then to kind of create like the hairs and stuff like in the mustache or beard or stuff like that. I use a paintbrush, so the bristles of paintbrush will actually give you the look of like like the hair and all that kind of stuff. So let's get started on it. All right, I'm to this point right here. You see I got the head kind of pushed down inside there. Now I'm going to be doing some refining to it. Now the bottom half isn't going to be that tall. I'm going to, once I get where I think the bust needs to be, I'm going to kind of cut that into a taper to start being able to make the bottom part, the part that it's going to be sitting on top of. So I'm going to go ahead and start taking a knife and some sandpaper, and I'm going to start trying to shape this to a really good torso shape. So let's get started on that. All right, I kind of wanted to show the one of the last steps in my process of when I'm doing this. You can see where I have the cardboard on here. Now that a lot of this caulking is pretty much dry to the point where I can kind of work with it without putting a bunch of dimples in it, I want to make sure that my jacket has a nice straight, straight, crisp looking line to it. So what I do is I just cut some thin cardboard, nothing super thick. I cut it to the shape that I want, make sure they're on, symmetrical, you know, straight like I want them. And what I do is I'll pump a little caulking right here. I'll smear it down, smooth everything in, and then once it gets to a certain point where it's, you know, dry to where I can kind of mess with it, then I'll just pull the cardboard off, and that'll give me a nice straight, crisp line all the way up and over. I still got to add the last little bit of detail here, here, and then a defined line here, and some buttons for the shirt portion. But once I do that, this one will be pretty much about done and ready for paint. All right, I gave the caulking a little bit of time to dry. I'm going to go ahead and pull the cardboard off so we can see what it looks like. Now, because the cardboard has like the little teeny holes in it, the caulking can kind of get trapped in it. So it's always a good idea to lightly run a razor blade down it just to make sure you free it up before you try to pull on it. Now it's not dry. It's you know, skinned up enough where I should be able to work with it without disturbing it. There's one side. There's the other side. So see, that gives me a very distinct, you know, nice line. Now next thing I'll just fill these little holes in with a little bit of caulking, and then once it's dry, I'll be ready to paint. All right, I went ahead and decided I'm going to go ahead and animate this prop after all. What my gameplay is where the bust sits inside the that little cubby. I'm just going to have it move back and forth just a little bit like this. Plus, I'm also going to paint it with some black light paint, so I'm hoping it's going to give it kind of like a nice glowing, floating, you know, kind of illusion to it. Obviously, I got to build a rig to do this and support it. So what I'm going to be using is an old spindle. I have an old riding motor deck. I'm a bit of a pack rat. I don't get rid of anything, especially if there's something on it that I think I might be used for a future project. And I feel this right here is going to be perfect because it has bearings on both sides. It has nice mounting points where I can mount it to something solid. It's going to be able to support the weight. It's going to work really good. It's going to move freely and all that. Then what I'll be doing is I'll be using the blade for the part where the motor links to it, you know, to get the back and forth swing. So I'm going to just cut this right here, weld a bolt on there wherever I need it to be for the correct amount of distance I need. I got the nut to be able to put that back on. Then the part that's going to go on the back of the bus is a piece of conduit. This will go right on here, right like that. What I'll be doing is drilling a hole right here, welding a nut to it, and then have a bolt. And that'll make it to where when I slide it through the prop and put this on to the spindle, I'll be able to tighten that up, and that's what's going to lock it onto there, and then this will be attached to the back of the bust. So, but first things first, I'm going to have to go ahead and start getting this mounted into the prop, make sure it's nice and solid, it's not going to move or anything like that, and then move forward. All right, so you see I got the rig going here. Now I'm going to have to take my washers and add a little weld in the washers to kind of close them out, because you'll see where it kind of does like a little slide thing, see it moves back and forth. So I'm getting this like, you know, kind of jerking kind of action right here. So I do got to fix that. You see where it's just going to move just a little bit. And if I need to, I can always, you know, drop that down to move a little bit less once I get the rig on there, you know, the actual bust on there. I can make a decision if I feel that it's moving too much, and I can always make adjustments to make it move a little bit less. It'll all depend on what it looks like once the bust is actually on there. All right, I went ahead and mounted it inside here. I figured before I start doing any kind of painting on it, I would check to see what my travel is, like how far it's moving back and forth, especially on that bottom right there. I wanted to make sure it wasn't moving too far or too less. Like I said, I just wanted a gradual little rock to it. I didn't want it to look like he was like, say, like on a swing set or something. You know, just enough movement to where when he's lit up with the black light, it just looks like it's essentially floating in there, you know, kind of just tipping back and forth kind of thing. So I think I'm pretty good with the distance that it's traveling. I don't think I'm going to mess with it anymore. So I'm going to get ready to start painting this one. All right, I'm back working on the bust. Unfortunately, I had to start all over again. I'm going to kind of explain why, so definitely listen to this because this has been extremely frustrating for me. I went ahead and I picked up that stuff and got it in the mail. It's that, you know, that paint that only reacts to black light. You know, this is kind of that stuff like when you go somewhere and they put the little stamp on the back of your hand, you know, and it only shows up in a black light. This stuff works really good. It's actually really cool looking. Kind of like you see right here. And you see, you don't see anything on here. It doesn't look like there's anything on this, you know, foam right here until you get it into the black light. So you can see, I mean, it looks really good. So what I decided to do is instead of painting the whole thing like I was talking about, I decided to kind of do like, you know those pictures where like when you shine a black light on them or make it look like lightning striking at them or something like that, they change the image. So I decided I'm going to go that route instead. I think it'd be, you know, it'd have a better, I think it'd have a little bit better effect, or it would look a little bit cooler. So what I did is I painted the face as a skull. I did a rib cage and all that kind of stuff on there. But that stuff is very watery. So what happened was I ended up with a few runs, and you also can't wipe it off neither. It just wants to smear. So now it, even though it looked okay, it didn't look good at all. So it's like, all right, well, I'll let that dry overnight. I'll just go ahead and repaint it. So I went ahead and put 2 layers of paint on there, re-aged it, got it ready to go again, turned the black light on, so I could start doing my new outline, and realized that the image was still coming through it. So apparently 2 layers of paint wasn't enough to make it go away. So I added another 2 layers of paint, checked it, still see the image coming through it. So I added another 2 layers of paint. So at this point I have 6 layers of paint on this thing, and the image is still coming through it. So there's something about that paint with the latex paint. It's like the latex paint just can't conceal it or cover it enough to make it go away. So in order for me to finally get that image to go away, the reason why it's gray is I end up having to go with an actual automotive primer. Now I put the primer on there, and now the image has disappeared. So you can see where, let me get my light here. You see where absolutely nothing is popping through now, where before it was still coming through. Even with all the lights on in the shop, I could still see it, especially if I had the black light that close to it. So it ended up taking 7 coats of paint to get it to where that image is gone, to where now I can actually start over. Of course, obviously, if I would have known in the very beginning that the automotive primer would have concealed it that way, I could have saved myself a bunch of time and a bunch of paint waste, not doing all those extra layers, you know, in order to make it go away. So, but now I'm finally at the point where I can restart on it again. So I'm going to go ahead and paint it white, re-age it, get it ready to go, get it back to the state that it was in. I'm going to retrace my new image with pencil first, so I can definitely be assured that I definitely like what I see. Then after that, then I'll go ahead and repaint my image, get it all done, get it back in the prop, and hopefully I can get this finished up.
Okay, I'm working on the lighting right now, and kind of like I was talking about, where I was going to use kind of like that. I like those pictures where when you put form a black light on them, you see an alternate image, and a lot of times either you got to either lose your ambient light, or you can kind of leave the ambient light on there depending on how intense your ambient light is versus your black light and all that kind of stuff. And I was originally going to do it as kind of like a lightning strike, but I'm not really going to do any kind of lightning strike anywhere else within this the display. So I really don't want the lightning strike on this one prop only, because I think it'd look really out of place. And also, when you think about it, I'm essentially making a haunted graveyard, haunted cemetery kind of thing. And as we know, obviously, any kind of spiritual activity for a spirit to manifest or anything like that, they rob energy from any kind of source of some kind. So what my plan is, I'm going to kind of do it in reverse, where I'm actually going to use the ambient light to essentially get the person's attention by, once they trigger the motion sensor, the ambient light is actually going to flicker, which will get their attention towards the prop. And then obviously the ambient light will go completely out. The black lights will come on. They'll see the alternate image that's painted on there. And then the black lights will go out and the ambient light will come back on. And then obviously it'll be able to reset itself for the next person to hit the motion sensor. And I kind of feel that the best way for me to achieve that is one of these. It's those Peekaboo prop controllers from Fright Props. Now, I've been looking at these things for a number of years. I just have never bought one. But I figure for this one, I wanted to go ahead and get one, because all the videos I watched on them, they look like they're very easy, very user friendly, quick to program. You can change the programming on them multiple times. They save the program that you put in them, so you don't have to constantly redo them every time you turn them on. So I decided to pick one of these up, and I picked up the Peekaboo Junior 103. They also have a Junior 104. The difference between the two is the 103 is strictly just a relay box for triggering lights, a motor, maybe one of those electric solenoids for an air powered, prop. Whereas the 104, you can do audio in there, so like you can make it scream. I'm not really looking to do any kind of audio, so the 103 is perfect for what I'm doing. So right now I do have a little things program in here. I'm going to run that real fast right now. So you'll see where my ambient light is going to flicker, almost like it's like robbing that power source, and then the black lights will come on. Then they'll see that alternate image. Then that'll go out, and then the ambient light will come back on. Then obviously it'll reset for the next person that triggers the motion sensor. So I think that's going to be the best way. Not to mention that with it being real easy programmable, once I get my motion sensor set, every time I'll walk past it like probably 100 times and dial it into exactly how long I want this to do its thing, how long I want these to be on, and then reverse back to it. And this will allow me to literally make fine adjustments by just re-recording what I want to do. So, but I got the prop all done. I'm going to go ahead and turn the camera around, show you guys the finished product, with the bust in there, with it moving, with the paint that's on it. And then I'll shut the lights out and I'll show you the actual lighted aspect of the prop. So let's go ahead and see it. All right, so this is pretty much the finished prop. You see I got everything on, everything's painted, distressed, all put together. I got the bust in there. I try to keep them as mostly white as possible for the marble look, but normal aging and distressing and stuff like that, you're going to get shadowing and build up of dark areas and stuff like that. So I try to do that on it, but I try to keep it to a minimum to really keep it as close to looking like a marble bust as possible. You see, I got him swinging back and forth. He has a nice little back and forth, almost like floating kind of, look inside the center there. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go turn the lights out, and I'm going to kind of show you what it looks like with the ambient light, and then obviously when it goes to the alternate image. Now the ambient light that I'm using is just kind of something I'm using for now for my for this demonstration. I'm sure once I actually have this fully set up in my display, the ambient light's probably going to be a little different than this. But I wanted something that was kind of low wattage, and this is essentially what I'm going to be using for that. So I said I'm going to do this in two ways. The first way is going to be from way back here, so you can kind of see the entire prop with the ambient light shining on the entire prop, and then with the black light. And then I'll bring the camera much closer to it, so this way you can see the details of the alternate image that the black light will project onto it. So I'm going to go ahead and shut the lights out. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and activate the trigger. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and get it closer to the prop so you can see the details better. Okay, I went ahead and turned the lights back on. I want you to be able to see a little more of the detail of the bust. Obviously, the jacket, the clothing, the facial hair, the hair on top, the distressing, and all that kind of stuff, so you can see the details a little bit better. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to shut the lights off now so you can see the actual alternate image a little bit closer so you can see the details of it. So I'm going to go ahead and shut the lights out and show you that part. Now we're closer to the relay box, so you're going to hear a lot more of the actual little relays clicking. But this is what it looks like up close. But there we go. Here's my finished prop with a nice little alternate twist to it. I hope you enjoyed this video of me taking an old prop and a new prop and kind of integrating the two together. If you like this video, hit that like button, subscribe, and as always, thanks for watching.